we're fine tuning through the winter and the spring and the summer events. So we might ask, I might expect them to be at their best, but I know we're going to tweak things and figure things out. It might be clothing, it might be the way they're holding their hand, it might be the way they're asking their horse to do transitions. But my goal is to have it all fine tuned by the fall shows so we can really, give our best performances there.
You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Welcome to The Ride, a bi-weekly podcast brought to you by Horse and Rider Magazine, co-hosted by Nichole Chirico and Devin Conley. In each episode, we chat with some of the industry's top trainers, clinicians, horsekeeping experts, and professionals to share inspiring stories, training philosophies, and the importance of living your best Western horse life. This episode of The Ride is brought to you by SmartPak. Even the best cared for horse can colic, but you don't have to go through it alone. With Colic Care by SmartPak, your horse gets daily comprehensive hindgut support and you get up to $15,000 in colic surgery reimbursement. Give your horse the best care possible and receive your own peace of mind in return. Choose Colic Care and enroll now by calling 1-800-461-8898 or visiting smartpak.com/colicare. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Ride. I'm your host, Nichole Chirico, and today's guest is Charlie Cole of Highpoint Performance Horses. Charlie's an AQHA professional horseman based out of Pilot Point, Texas, and he's been involved with the quarter horses for more than 35 years and has trained more than 50 AQHA world champions across several different disciplines. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, Charlie.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So before we kind of dive into some of the stuff that you guys are currently doing at Highpoint Performance Horses, for those who might not be familiar with the quarter horse industry or your background, do you kind of want to give everybody a rundown of how you got involved in the horses growing up and what your journey was to where you guys currently are?
Yeah, I grew up in the city in Southern California. My family was not involved in the horses or in any kind of the equine industry. But my sister decided she wanted a horse when I was probably 8, 7. And so she was the one who got our family to move out to an area in Orange County where you could have a horse. To be honest, I loved animals, but I was for sure into reptiles and snakes and stuff. So my sister and my mom would show a little bit. I'd just be out catching critters. But it finally did catch up, and I did finally probably when I was around I think when I was around 12, I realized I really liked the horses, and I'd gone to a camp that was horse related, and it kind of bit me then. So I knew about then that I actually did like horses.
So what was the journey kind of from there? How did you get involved in the horse showing? I'm familiar with you a little bit from my quarter horse background, and you at the time were doing almost every kind of discipline and event. And now it's obviously a little more specialized, but you probably had your, especially being in California where the ring cow horse is really popular, the trail is really popular, you probably had your fair share of trying all the different disciplines.
Yeah, I mean, that was the great thing about growing up in California. I was exposed to so many different disciplines. And I showed a little bit on the open circuit. So I watched Grand Prix. There was cow horse, everything was there. But to be honest, I always loved Western pleasure. I liked the slow, boring stuff. And so that was kind of where I started. Where I went to camp, it was actually also a boarding school, and it was all horse related. And it was Tom Chowns, who was a top pleasure trainer at the time. It was his father's ranch and boarding school in college. So I left home at 12 and went there. I actually didn't show that much as a kid. I showed a little bit when I was 13. I went to the youth world when I was 14 in the pleasure. And then I went to work, so I didn't really do much until I was 18. But I always loved the Western pleasure. It wasn't until I was like 18 and I went to work for or rode with Tim Whitney that I was exposed more to like the trail and the Western riding and the all-around events. And that's when I actually kind of fell in love with those events.
So where's the journey kind of from that point to where you guys are now? How did you decide like, okay, this is what I want to do for my career? How was Highpoint Performance Horses kind of founded? You guys have been obviously one of the top competitors for years upon years and all of the all around stuff, but also in the English stuff, in the pleasure driving. And now you guys have barrel racing horses. I mean, you are touching so many different parts of the industry. How did that all kind of come to be created?
Well, the short version is I went to boarding school from the time I was 12 to 16 and really just focused on riding horses then. And it actually was a heavily cow horse and cutting, reining background, but I still loved those pleasure horses. So I would spend my summers in Texas with Tom Chown. But I quit school at 16. I went to work, actually only about a mile from where I live now in Pilot Point, Texas. I did that for almost a year. Then I went and did my last year of youth and showed and worked for a guy named Tim Whitney. And that's who actually exposed me to the all-around and who I started showing trail and Western riding with. But also, I had a horse that I was riding there that I didn't fit well, and that another trainer came to look at it, and their youth kid was Jason Martin. And Jason Martin bought that horse that I didn't like. And that's how we first knew each other, and we showed against each other for a whole year. And we weren't especially tight or anything or good friends because we were super competitive. But that's how I met Jason. And then I went out on my own when I was, at the end, when I was about 21. And at that, my business went well for a year or two by myself. And I was seeing Jason at the shows, and Jason had a strong English background. But he was doing the Western stuff, but he was having a lot of success. He'd already had a couple world champions right when he started his own business. And I was having some English horses and some hunters and stuff in my program. So the way High Points kind of started was we started stalling next to each other at the horse shows because that's when the split combined format started. And so there'd be an English arena and then a Western arena. And there was only one of me and there was only one of Jason in his business. So we started stalling next to each other. And I would help his clients in the Western riding and the trail and the horsemanship pen. And he would help my clients and show some of my hunters in the hunter pen.
So kind of going from there, I mean, you guys, obviously you have ridden some really insanely talented and Hall of Famers, multiple world champions. Is there any horse that kind of stands out to you throughout your career or any special moments that you kind of reflect back and kind of helped you become the horseman that you are today?
I mean, I when I look at the list or when I think about that, when I saw that question, it's really hard I've been lucky enough to ride, and Jason and I have both been lucky enough to ride some of the greatest horses of our generation and our careers. But there is a horse, and he's my favorite horse, and I will always say that. His name was a Cat Mosby Award, otherwise known as Oscar. And I always tell people Oscar was the horse that put Jason and I on the map. We were two young, 22-year-old kid horse trainers, or young men, I guess. And we had a client that wanted us to find them a great hunt seat horse. And it took us months and months to find a horse, but we finally found Oscar, but it took even more time to get him bought. But there was just something special about that horse. He had this amazing ring presence, on top of the fact that he just was the most giving, kindest, happiest horse you ever were around. And I also say the smartest horse. So Oscar really is the horse that put us on the map because he went on to win 3 super horse titles with us. He did anything we wanted him to do. He won more world championships in performance events than any other horse, still holds the record. And the amazing thing is he won the first time he ever walked into the arena at the World Show, he won his class. And the last time he walked out of the arena, he won his class with Jason. So he was a winner from start to finish. And we retired him at only 14 years old, but we really had nothing left to prove. And he really earned his retirement. And I was very fortunate the family that owned him let Jason and I keep him for his whole life. And he actually just passed away last year at 33. So I had him for 30 years, and he was pretty special to us.
I remember seeing that about him last year, but 33 is pretty incredible. And it's really cool to be able to say that you've had that horse from the start of his career to the end of it, and then also be able to let him enjoy that retirement. Because, I mean, how special to be able to give that back to him.
Yeah, it was hard losing him, but he had the perfect life, and I wouldn't change one thing about it. And so we were really lucky to have that relationship and that horse. And like, he's definitely the horse that changed our lives and took us on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. From that start of the journey, now you guys are standing some incredible stallions. You recently built a stallion barn that is absolutely stunning. I haven't seen it in person, but the pictures and the videos, they're beautiful. How did you kind of venture into that business? Because that's kind of its own animal on its own. You guys have probably 40 to 50, 60 horses in training for your training barn, but then to add the stallion barn and the standing everything, on the side, that's got to be a lot too.
Yeah, Highpoint has always been evolving, and Jason and I have always been just always trying to push things forward and to progress and not be stuck in the same rut or get bored. And we're always looking for ways to improve ourselves and improve our business. And I would say about 12 to 15 years ago, we thought, we should own a stallion, or we should stand some stallions. So we got some clients that had a couple stallions once we were pretty settled in Texas. And then we decided that, we should probably own our own stallion. And at that time, we were standing a bunch of performance horses for our clients. So barrel racing was kind of our hobby, especially my hobby. I was going to barrel races 2 or 3 times a week. And so we decided we would get a barrel stallion. And the first thought was to raise one. So I was fortunate enough to get a couple embryos out of a couple of the greatest mares ever for barrel racing. I had those coming along, and then a horse named Slick by Design came into my life. I just saw him at the World Show. I'd never heard of him, never heard of his rider, and something about him, I just knew. I was like, that's a great horse. I watched him in the prelims. I came back and watched him in the finals, and I knew I had to have that horse. So eventually I owned him. So the breeding kind of took off from there. Slick really had a great performance career, but he did really well in the barrel racing. So then more barrel racing stallions and came and wanted us to stand them. So we have a lot of our own, and we stand a lot of client stallions.
So you mentioned that barrel racing kind of became a hobby of yours, which is funny because you just mentioned that the pleasure, you love that slow pleasure kind of stuff. How did you transition from the pleasure to running a barrel pattern in under 16 seconds?
Well, I think, that where I grew up at boarding school was a bit of a rodeo background. So I had that in me a little bit. I never got a chance to really rope that much, or I didn't ride rough stock, but I was always around it, and I always enjoyed it. So I think about 8 to 10 years into the start of Highpoint, Jason and I both decided, like, what else could we do that'd be fun? We talked about getting reiners, which Jason actually did. But I didn't love the fact that everything I do is judged. I mean, every time I walk in the arena, I'm being judged. So I knew about barrel racing, and I'd done it some as a kid and pole bending. So I decided that that's all on me. So that's how I got my first barrel horse and just went from there.
I love it. And it's very true. Everything you do is judged. It's kind of nice to be able to just kind of go out there and let the clock be the decision maker. It would probably be a very different change of pace. That's for sure.
Yeah, I definitely I like going fast. I just enjoy that. And it's like a rush. And to be totally honest, like barrel racing for years was the only thing that kind of, I don't know if scared me is the right word, but like I would get nervous, I would get anxious, but I loved the rush of it. I still love the rush of it. Where like a lot of the stuff I do, I don't really get nervous. I just, but I do love it and I crave it. But barrel racing has this little extra factor of danger, I guess.
I think I came from the all around stuff too. And there was always that perfection and control and having every step. And then I went over to the cow horse and kind of had that same feeling where it was just, you kind of had to give up some of that control and perfection and just kind of let the horse do its thing and hang on.
Yeah, for sure. It's a rush, right?
It is. Yeah. fun. Okay, so with so many horses going to so many events, whether it's barrel racing, you have the all-arounder still, you have the stallions, you have the hunter under saddle side of the business. How are you guys keeping everything organized, especially when it comes to making sure your horses are having the nutrition and care that they need on a daily basis? I mean, these are performance horses, these are athletes. I'm sure you're tailoring their nutrition to individually, and it's a lot when you have this many horses.
Yeah, it is. And, different disciplines have different nutritional needs. And we really try to look at that. But I think the basis of all of our horses feeding is good quality alfalfa and forage for them. And then we try to feed a grain, that I'm a big Purina person. I've fed Purina my entire career. That is quality and that's palpable to them. And then, of course, we use a lot of supplements. I've been with Smart Pack for a long time. The first time I ever saw Smart Packs, I was like, "That's brilliant," and it really simplified how to administer supplements to our horses because we were having all these containers, and who knew if they were really getting it. So, so then I've used Smart Pack for a long time, and I really believe in gut care. For all of our horses, I really focus a lot on that, whether they're barrel horses or show horses or they're broodmares and babies. And then like the show horses their coats have to look good because like I said, everything is judged on them. So they have to look perfect. And the barrel horses maybe they don't have to look quite as good. Maybe their coats don't matter, but their recovery is important. So we want a supplement that helps them recover. We want to supplement that helps their joints and that kind of stuff. So all of the different disciplines we do have different needs, but I think there's a core or a single belief that they need to have the best nutrition and the best care we can give them to perform at the highest level, which is what I want to compete at.
Absolutely. And it's so nice knowing that with like the Smart Packs, especially, you can throw them in the trailer. You know how much you have, you know how many you need for a horse show and how many you need for each horse. It's got to make that part of getting ready for a show much easier.
For sure. And it's a bit of accountability to those people that, I have great staff, but if it's a week-long show and you send 7 Smart Packs, you better come back with no Smart Packs.
Right.
So I really just like that whole system of how to deliver the supplement to the horse.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about prepping a horse for the show pen. We've talked about kind of how you do it from a nutrition standpoint, making sure that their hair coats look good, their muscling is good, making sure they have the recovery that they need. But a lot of our listeners are people who either keep their horses at home, they're do-it-yourself competitors, they kind of rely on clinicians coming to town or hauling in for lessons. And I know that they would absolutely love to hear from you about prepping a horse for the show pen. You're a judge, you're a competitor, you've competed in all of the big events, whether you've had horses in the NFR, you've had horses at the World Show. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what someone can do to kind of prepare for the show pen, whether it's kind of like confidence, pattern placement, overall presentation, the little things that might help them stand out before they go into the pen the next time?
Well, I think it a little bit is dependent on what level you're talking about. Like for me, I just got back from the Silver Dollar, from the EMO show in Las Vegas. And for a show like that, I try to keep my horses tuned. I can try to keep them prepared. My clients come and ride, as much as they can. They're at a level that a lot of them don't live by me, but they know their horses really well. But I think knowing your horse well, being comfortable on your horse, and obviously being comfortable in practicing the event that you're going to do or the events that you're going to do are really important. And then I think I look at it, for me personally, like when I go to a show in July, I'm asking my horses to perform at I'll say 75%. I'm not really a big believer in asking for 100% at this time of the year. So I don't ask for their lives or for their top level performance when I'm just going to circuits and stuff. Now I'm building my way into the fall shows, which is the NSBA World, the Congress, and the World Championship show, which to me is the epitome of it all. And I'm going to ask my horse for a greater percentage at those events. And I even think like non-pros are the same way. We're fine tuning through the winter and the spring and the summer events. So we might ask, I might expect them to be at their best, but I know we're going to tweak things and figure things out. It might be clothing. It might be the way they're holding their hand. It might be the way they're asking their horse to do transitions. But my goal is to have it all fine-tuned by the fall shows so we can really, give our best performances there.
Absolutely. Setting yourself up so that you have the horse that you need at the time that it matters is huge. So you grew up doing some of the open show stuff. You've kind of experienced that level. For anyone who's maybe branching out and they're wanting to try something new, whether it's at the open show level or they want to go to their first breed show, or even they're a Western pleasure person that wants to get involved in the barrel racing, how would you go about telling someone that's kind of looking to get involved, but they don't really know where to begin?
Well, I think the first thing is good for them for trying it, and don't be afraid to try it. Just like me with barrel racing, I literally bought a mediocre barrel horse and ran it around for a year and made all my mistakes on it. But I also got help, and I reached out to some people that were top end barrel racers and pole benders. I was doing pole bending at the time to get help. And so don't, if you think doing the let's just go with trail looks interesting, you want to try it, don't be afraid to try it. Don't be afraid to get help, and go do it. And if you're no good the first 30 times, who cares? Just as long as you're improving and you're learning and you're making progress, I think that's what's most important. And I think a lot of people get intimidated because maybe they're seeing me at the horse show or afraid to ride around them. And I try to always offer encouragement, or not to be, if someone's practicing and they're new to it and I can tell they don't know what they're really doing, I'll either offer some help or I'll just, give them the way and let them figure it out. But I think it's good to challenge yourself, and I think it takes time. So don't give up too quick and don't be frustrated. But, if trail's not your event, maybe go try the equitation. Don't be afraid to try other events and see what works for you and your horse.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even if you've been in the industry for a long time, I mean, you kind of prove that point of just going out and doing something new is a lot of fun. And you probably learned something new. I don't know if you can apply what you do at the barrel racing to maybe the trail or the all around or pleasure, but I'm sure you could probably say it's helped you become a better rider.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of crossover, like just even for how I ride my pleasure horses, a little bit of that, or my all around horses, a little bit of that does carry into the barrel horses. Like today I'm in Calgary and I'm going to go ride my barrel horses when they arrive, just to help put a little tune up on them or a little suppleness on them for Wenda, who runs them. And it goes both ways. So, there's definitely crossover in all training, riding aspects of it.
That's really cool. Well, you mentioned you're in Calgary. What is kind of in the future for you guys? I know you said that you have NSBA World, the AQHA World shows and the Congress, but outside of that, you're in Calgary for a barrel race right now. Any other exciting events coming up?
Well, this next 2 weeks are pretty exciting for me. I'm here for Calgary. I haven't been here in 10 years. My horses run here. They call it the greatest show on dirt. It's huge. It's a game changer for the barrel racing or for the rodeo world. And right now, Wenda is number 2 in the world. So we're trying to get to the NFR again in December, and it's looking well. So she runs the next couple of days here, and then I'm going to drive the truck and trailer for a week. We go to Salt Lake City, Nampa, Idaho, Cheyenne, Wyoming, back to Utah. So I'll be all over the place for the next week, and then I go home for about 10 days, and then I hit the NSBA World. So I got a busy couple of weeks coming up. I'm excited, and I just had a really good show in Las Vegas. So my horses, I kind of felt like deserved a chill week this week. So it worked out just right.
That's got to be quite the experience, because in the all around and the pleasure stuff, we're at a location for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes even 4 weeks. Whereas in the rodeo world, you're kind of bouncing from state to state, county to county, just trying to hit the road and earn the money you need to get to the NFR. How's that been for a change of pace?
It is unbelievably crazy what these rodeo people do and how they do it, but you just get used to being in the truck. So yeah, there's times like we'll leave here, we'll drive 12 hours. I think we'll break it up into 2 days. Then we'll run at Salt Lake City. we'll be in Salt Lake City for a few hours, make the run, and then we got to drive 7 hours to Cheyenne and run the next day in Cheyenne. You don't get a setup. You don't get to make home. You are in your home when you're in that trailer. And the horses, we have these little portable pens that I can't even imagine putting one of my show horses in. I got a $500,000 barrel horse standing in a pen with a strip of tape around it to keep them in there. But it's a different world, but they're used to it, and it's a lot of fun too. I mean, there's a lot of excitement in rodeo, and I really do enjoy it.
So for those horses that are hauling down the road like they are for the barrel racing, the rodeo stuff in general, how are you kind of keeping their health and nutrition going on the road with, obviously there's a lot of miles in the trailer, they're running a lot, what's the kind of joint care, aftercare kind of stuff you're doing in between the races?
Well, it's definitely different hauling the rodeo horses. I think you take more time, you take breaks, if you have a long haul, we unload them. We'll unload them around their dinner time, let them eat, let them drink, let them chill, and then we move on. As far as the aftercare, like tomorrow, we're here for 3 days, which is rare because most places you run once, but we will, when we're done on Sunday, we'll do more aftercare, we'll shockwave, and we'll do whatever we need to do, and then put them in the trailer. And we try to find good places to lay over at night so they can be totally comfortable. And so you kind of have to fit it in, and what I learned a couple of years ago is, when we're horse showing, when we're done showing, we just go home. But these horses are going right to another event. So you take your time and you really make sure your horse all its needs are met, because a lot of its times you can be sitting in a trailer or tied to a trailer.
Absolutely. Well, for those who want to follow along while you are doing the barrel racing journey and the all-around journey, is there anywhere on social media that they can kind of follow Highpoint Performance Horses or anything like that?
Yeah, we have Highpoint Barrel Horses on Facebook. We have Highpoint Performance Horses on Facebook. So you can, follow us on there. And then I need to do a better job. I'm going to try to document Calgary because Calgary is quite an experience. So you can look for us on there, and I'll try to keep it updated a little bit even better. But we do keep a bit on there. It's all on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're probably busy trying to get ready for Calgary, so we'll go ahead and let you go, but really appreciate you coming on and talking with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed talking to you and talking about our horses.
Once again, we'd like to thank SmartPack for sponsoring this episode of The Ride. Thank you guys for tuning into the Ride podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Horse and Rider Magazine on social media and find us at horseandrider.com to see all the cool things that we're up to. And if you have any comments or questions, please be sure to hit us up at horseandrider@equinenetwork.com. We want to hear from you guys. And if you like what you're listening to, please be sure to leave us a review on iTunes.